All right, Jim, welcome.
Hello, Dan.
Real excited to have you on board today. And one of the reasons I'm so excited is because you have such a history in the music business. And what I want people to take away from our conversation today and your story is that anybody can figure out a way to get in the music business, whether it's talent, whether it's producing, whether it's editing, all these different areas of the music business, because I know that you'll have some really great input on how they can do that. And as our goal with the Wheel of Purpose is that we connect our purpose to what we do. And I think you've done that, and it's pretty hard to beat when you're working at your purpose. So that's what we're going to talk about. So Jim, first of all, can you give us a little background on where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Arizona, and at about 5 years old, my parents moved up to Lake Tahoe. And at that time, they were performers. They used to perform in small nightclubs, doing Louis Prima, Frank Sinatra songs, et cetera, et cetera. And living at Lake Tahoe, you could do pretty much anything you wanted. So we started a little family band up there, and we used to go in and perform with them at nightclubs around the area. And from there, I started playing in other bands. I started playing in the jazz band. I started playing in the high school band. This was all along with playing sports. And I was really, really interested in music. And I found that I could write music. And I did the traditional write a song for your high school graduation. And I became better and better at writing music. And when I went into college.
So wait, before you get to college, in high school.
Yeah.
So how old were you when your parents, when you picked up your first instrument or you started singing? What did you do exactly?
Oh, I was a drummer, and
drummer.
Yeah, and I used to, my parents say it's kind of hard to believe, but they say that I started when I was around 3 years old playing with sticks and pots and pans. And I remember getting into major trouble once when I was playing pots and pans behind the couch, and my cymbal was the cupboard, and I was marking up the cupboard with my stick, and my mom caught me, and she like, oh, you gotta stop that. We gotta get him a drum set. So they got me a little drum set, and that's when I started.
And did you take lessons or did you teach yourself?
Pretty much I learned by ear. At that time, my parents were really into songs, and they would learn songs for their nightclub act. And I would watch them play, and then I would try and play with them and listen to the drums on the records, and I'd try to copy that. And then I think when I became a certain age, they started giving me lessons. Their drummer, that his name was Little Eddie. He was about 5'5". They'd pay Little Eddie $20 or $10 or something to come over and teach me for an hour. And at that point, I was getting pretty good after he started teaching me.
How old were you with the first time you performed with your parents?
Probably about 5.
5.
Yeah. Yeah, they brought me down. It was the funniest thing because, here we are in a bar. It's about 10:30 at night, and they're performing, and they go, oh, we want to bring up my son. And so, they brought me on stage, and I think I played Just a Gigolo was the first song I played on stage by Louis Prima.
And so how often would you play with your parents when you were growing up from age 5 on?
When they were in the living room, pretty much all the time, they'd have me play along with them. And when I started getting better and getting a little bored with their music, they bought me a little 45 music player, and I would go down and buy, of course, the Beatles and put the Beatles on, and every single that would come out, I'd wait for their new single, and I learned how to play the drums to Help, to She Loves You, to all of those first singles that came out.
And so from there, you went into high school and you continued pursuing music, playing with friends, playing in the band, playing music, huh?
Yeah. It's funny. I just got a Facebook from one of my friends that was in our band, and our band was called Bite, Bite, and the only gig we ever had as Bite was playing my brother's 8th grade graduation. The only reason we got that gig was because my mom was the president of the 8th grade booster club or something like that, and she said, "Oh yeah, you should have my son play." And basically, I think we knew 3 songs. We knew Tequila Sunrise, we knew The Letter, and I can't even remember. I think um, She Loves You, Yeah, 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 right? Those were the 3 songs. Just kept playing those 3 songs over and over. Um, and I saw Jerry Epps on Facebook, and he's still performing. He plays in bars and still does it, So that was pretty interesting.
My God.
Yeah.
Did the bug hit you then? Were you hooked like deep into music?
Oh yeah. When I was I think 5 years old, my parents were performing in Las Vegas at the Sahara Tahoe, and across the street at the convention center, the Beatles were playing. And we didn't have tickets, but my dad took us around the back, and he asked the security guard if we could go in, and the security guard let us in the back, and I saw the Beatles on stage playing, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is just amazing!" And
That's a moment.
yeah, it was pretty fun.
So, you get into high school, you play in some bands, you're getting towards the end of high school, and you're choosing what to do after high school. What were your thoughts?
Well, I was an athlete, and going to a small school like that, you could play pretty much any sport. So I was playing basketball, and I got a lot of accolades playing basketball. And I ended up getting approached by this college in Los Altos called Foothill College. And the coach wanted me to come down, do a tryout. So I went down, did a tryout, and he said, "Oh yeah, we'll put you on the team." And I was also a golfer. And so I went down there and played basketball for 2 years. And then I decided basketball wasn't for me. And I started playing golf. And I played golf for another year there before transferring into UCLA. But I had a roommate who was on the basketball team, and he was from Hawaii, and he played guitar. And we used to perform on the guitar off and on for different clubs. They would, of course, girls would come over and we perform for them. And he was a songwriter, and he wrote some songs. And I go, "Well, how'd you do this?" And so we ended up collaborating together on a few songs, and that's kind of how I got into songwriting.
So you're in college, you're writing some music, you're performing with a buddy of yours, you're still in the whole music deal. College is coming up, you're going to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
What was on your mind?
At that time, I was a psychology / pre-med student. And I had decided that I was not going to do sports. I wanted to play professional golf, and I just wasn't good enough. So I really put my effort into studying, and I did really well in psychology. I did really well in chemistry and physics and all those tough classes. And I transferred into UCLA. I went to a intern program right before to get some experience working before I applied for graduate school. And I started working with young kids at the Neuropsychiatric Institute. And what I found, it was just a very, very difficult and draining job when you were working on kids, because I was a pretty emotional guy, and I would get really involved with them, and I would feel like I was helping them, and then they would just do things to mess you up and make you feel bad, and I didn't feel like I was getting anything out of it for myself. I was just giving everything to them to try and make them better, and then they would move out of the hospital, and then a week later they would come back and they would have the exact same problem. So I got I got real frustrated. And when I was at UCLA, I used to write songs, and I used to write musicals. There were a couple musicals I wrote while in college, and luckily that was a time where there was a lot of money around, and the UCLA dormitory invested money in doing a couple of the musicals that I had written, and we were able to put them on in the 5 different dormitories at UCLA, and they were very successful. And so I was thinking I wanted to get out, and I wanted to either write musicals or write music for people. And while studying psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once I got out and got a taste of the music business, I started shopping my songs around. I started shopping, my performing around to different music publishers. And there were a couple of them that got really interested. And every song I would write, I would take it in and I would play it for these publishers, and they'd say, this is really good, but if you could do this, or if you write something about that. And I took a couple of songwriting classes, and I remember there were probably 20 people in the songwriting class, and everybody would write a song a week. And every time I wrote a song in there and performed it, they just thought, man, this is fantastic. You're really good. And the rest of the people were okay, but I was writing some really good songs. And the person who put on the class, came up to me afterwards, and he said, you really should try and do this for a living, right? And he kind of guided me and said you had to do good demos, and you had to hire professionals to sing the songs. And he kind of gave me a little bit of background on how to actually get your songs cut. And there was a writer that I knew that didn't go to college, but his name was Michael J. And Michael J. had a huge hit with an artist called Martika. But this was about 5 years before he had that hit. And he and a friend of mine named Alan Satchwell, we would hang out together and we would write songs. And I remember he bought this brand new drum machine called the Lin 88. And he would use this drum machine to program his songs. And it made him sound like a radio song, like a song was just on the radio. And he wrote a couple songs and he got them cut. And he made really good money. Then he got a publishing deal. And a publishing deal, if you don't know what it is, it's a publishing company will sign a writer, and all they have to do is write songs, and they'll pay for their demos. And they try to get those songs recorded by major artists. Mm-hmm. So out of my little group of friends, he was the first one to actually get a song cut and a publishing deal. And he got a publishing deal for about $35,000 from a guy named Alan Molina at Famous Music. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, you could actually make money doing this. And I saw him, write song after song and started getting cuts. So I thought, I can do this. So I bought all the equipment I needed and started writing songs. And I got a friend of mine. I had been in a song competition with him at UCLA, and he decided that he was going to go into the music business. He got a job in the tape room at this company called Chappell Music, which is now called Warner Chappell, but back in the day it was Chappell Music. And he decided that he didn't want to work there anymore because he was making $180 a week, and he wasn't getting anywhere. He wanted to be a screenwriter, and he wasn't getting anywhere. So he decided that he was going to leave that job and try to get in at one of the film studios.
But you were already working, right?
I had a job that was paying me about $800 a month. And so they hired me to work in the tape room. And basically what that was, you had these 10-inch reels of songs on 1/4-inch tape. and there were probably 20 songs on each reel. And there were these people called professional managers that would take the songs and shop them to different managers and artists and A&R people. And my job was to put the songs that they wanted. They would pick 3 or 4 songs to put the songs that they wanted on. At that time, it was a cassette tape. And then the cassette tape, they would take the tape over and play it for these A&R people to try and get the songs recorded. So, excuse me. So basically, my job was to pretty much do whatever the professional manager does. And I remember one of my jobs was to drive the songs over to the management company, because there was some feeling that if you had a hit song, what you thought was a hit song, you couldn't wait until the Federal Express got the tape the next day to the management. You had to drive it over there at that moment because they had to hear it right then. And so I remember there were 2 professional managers in my office, and we got this great song in called, and you might know the song. It's called "What's Love Got to Do with It?"
Yeah, sure.
And I remember they loved the song, and Tina Turner was making a record over at A&M Records with John Carter. And both these managers wanted to get that song over there as soon as possible. And so, of course, I was the guy that was going to drive it over in my 67 Mustang, right? And so they both asked me kind of separately, can you take this over? Can you take this over? You know, I didn't want to diss one of them by taking one or the other. So they had 2 packages, and I drove both packages over, and I delivered them to John Carter's office, right? And I can't remember who got the credit, but Tina Turner ended up doing the song. It became a big hit, right? So someone leveraged their relationship with John Carter into telling them that they were the one that sent the song over. So that's a pretty good story.
So you're working in the tape room.
Yeah.
And you're still thinking, I want to do something in the music business. I like the writing. I can do this. You were doing it at the same time as you were in the tape room?
Oh yeah. And there were, you know, the great thing was I would have scores and scores of songs, looking at the titles and what the songs were about and how the songs were structured. So as I was sitting there copying all these songs that came through, you know, I'd listen to them, and it would kind of hone your craft onto how long it takes, how long a verse should be, what comes after the verse melodically, and then how you get into the chorus and how long the chorus should be before you go back to the verse.
But you had no idea when you took this job in the tape room that this is what you were going to learn, did you?
No. I just felt like I wanted to write songs. I wanted to be a songwriter.
You wanted to be around.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, and that was the path that you had in front of you, because it wasn't a financial decision. You weren't making any more money. You were making a lot less money.
Right. No, it was just like I think any industry that you get into, the more you know about it, the better chance you have of being successful. And what was great about that is I knew all the players, you know, from sitting with the professional managers. They knew everybody who was looking for songs. So in return, I learned about all those people who were looking for songs. And if I had a song that I felt was right for that person, I could go directly to them. You know, I knew the address, I knew the person's name.
Did you do that? Did you do that?
You probably weren't supposed to do that, but you know, I talked to my mentor who worked at the company, and he said, you know, they get so many songs, it really doesn't matter. And if you get lucky and get a cut, then we would publish that song, and everybody would love you for that, and you'd probably get a publishing deal, right? So they kind of embraced the fact that I wanted to be a songwriter. And if I weren't a good worker, and and they didn't like what I was doing, they probably wouldn't have allowed that.
Yeah.
But they felt I was working really hard and I was getting the job done, and that wasn't interrupting me from doing what I had to do at the job.
One of the things we talk about at Wheel of Purpose is that you decide what it is that makes your heart on fire, that gets you out of bed every day, that you're so excited to do, what that general category is. And then you start moving in a direction of finding how you can be involved in it, whichever way you can. And obviously you walked in on the bottom floor. I mean, other than that, you might've been emptying trash bins, but you're doing reels and you're listening to music. So you're in a place where you just went in the direction of music. This is what I want to do. And somehow your buddy called you, because it could have gone a ton of different ways. You could have never found a job for 5 years, but here you are in the arena.
Right.
So you're a tape guy. You're delivering tapes. You're nothing but you put stuff on a cassette tape and drive it over for people, and that's what you do. All right. What was the next shift that happened for you?
There was a woman working in our office, and her name was Jolene Cherry. And she was a fairly well-known professional manager. And basically, we had 3 professional managers. There was the head guy, who was Bob Scoro. There was Jolene Cherry. And then there was the A&R person that went out to clubs looking for bands. Her name was Susan Collins. So Jolene Cherry decided, she had a huge hit with Blondie. I wish I could remember the song, but Warrior, I Am the Warrior. And she got a real big bonus, and she decided that she wanted to go into business on her own. So she became a movie and television person, which left an opening in professional management there. And Ira Jaffe, who was the president of the company, he liked the way I worked with the writers, and the writers respected me. They would come in and they would ask me what I felt about their songs. And he decided to take a shot with me to make me a professional manager, which meant I set writers up together. I had them write songs. I told them what artists were looking for songs. I gained relationships with the people, the managers and the A&R people who were looking for songs for their artists. And basically, he put his faith in me that I could take these songs and get records with them. And what happened is there was a couple of writers. It was probably in the first 3 months that I was working there as a professional manager. There were these writers named Leeson and Vale that wrote a song in England. And they sent it over, and I thought it was a fantastic song. And a friend of mine, Don Grierson, was working at Capitol Records. And he told me that the producer David Kirschenbaum was looking for songs for Eddie Money, right? So I kind of found my way. I knew where David Kirschenbaum produced most of his records, the studio, and Don Grierson put in a phone call for me. And he got me a meeting with David Kirschenbaum. So I went over to the studio, and David came out and said hello. And I said, I've got this great song I'd like to play. And David said, okay, let's hear it. And so we went in the studio, and I played him this song called Take Me Home Tonight. And he goes, yeah, I kind of like this. And so I drive away, feeling good. He liked the song that I brought over. And about 2 weeks later, I get a call from Don Grierson that Eddie Money wants to cut Take Me Home Tonight. And, that's
the first big moment for you.
That was the first big one.
That was the first big one.
And so I'm all excited, and Eddie's going to cut it. And I find out that David Kirschenbaum, he gets fired from the project. And usually when that happens, a new producer comes in and, decides he wants to cut his own songs. He doesn't want to cut all the old person's songs, the old producer songs. And they hired Richie Zito to produce. And thank God Richie Zito loved the song and thought it was a hit song. And they recorded the song, and it became a big hit, #1 record. So I was very lucky in the first few months of doing what I did to have a hit like that. And that kind of solidified my position as a professional manager. And the problem is that my songwriting kind of took a backseat, because now I knew I could do it, and I just wanted to be as successful as I possibly could at that job. And as you know, if you work at an ice cream store, it's hard to eat ice cream for dessert every night after working at the ice cream store. So
Right.
my focus then became on becoming, an executive, a good executive in the music business.
So from that point on, you were able to bring writers together. You're able to go visit people who are playing. You just got your headstrong into the whole music deal.
As much as I could possibly do. The music business, as you know, was mostly done at that time in the clubs. And artists would perform and songwriters would go to the clubs. So basically, I would work all day in the office, sending out songs and making phone calls and seeing who was looking for songs. And then at night, I would go down and see the different artists who were performing. I remember seeing Guns N' Roses at Club Lingerie. I remember seeing Oasis that came over and played at the Roxy, right? And what would happen is you would see all of the major players in the music industry coming to see these bands, because they were considered the top bands in the music industry, and you wanted to be a part of it. And so, as I kept doing this, my familiarity with all these people started growing. My Rolodex started growing, and writers would start coming to me because they knew I had contacts with all these people that would get their songs listened to. And, once you start getting a reputation like that, the other publishers start looking at you. And about 2 years into my first job at Chapel Music, the head of Paramount Pictures Music Publishing, Famous Music, Alan Molina, heard about me from, you'll never guess what writer told him about me, but the original writer, Michael J., that I used to work with. And they told me that I had, a big hit with Eddie Money, and Alan Molina needed a vice president. And so he came over and hired me to be vice president over at Paramount.
That's what, 3-4 years after you started in the tape room?
It was about 2 years. It was pretty quick. But
wow.
But like I said, when you have a quick hit like that,
Yeah.
and I had a couple other things. Jermaine Jackson cut a song of mine. There was an artist that came out of the UK that a friend of mine, Dennis Inglesby, worked with. And if I could remember the name of them, it was this duet, and they were really big. And I remember him telling me a story that Clive Davis wanted to cut a song on Whitney Houston, and he wanted the song for his duo. And Clive Davis was like the most powerful person in the music industry at that time, because he was having hit after hit after hit with Whitney Houston. And he called him up and he said, "You can't have this song, because I, Clive Davis, want this song for Whitney Houston." And my friend Dennis Inglesby said, "Well, that's too bad, Clive, because I'm cutting it and I'm releasing it next week." And so that was a huge thing. So anyway, your reputation goes through the music industry like wildfire when you're hot, right? When they think you can come up with a hit. So I ended up getting a really good position over at Paramount's publishing company with Alan. And, he came over from England. So he was just starting his office. And, he was signing writers, and they were spending money, and they were growing the office. So it was a very, very, very exciting time, because basically he just put the reins in my hands and he said, "Go and do." So I signed a bunch of writers, signed a couple of artists, And I had some pretty good success there also.
How long did you work at Paramount for?
I was there for 7 years.
Oh,
Working at
that's
Paramount.
quite a while.
Yeah. So, uh, Take My Breath Away. I had an artist named Paula Cole there. I had an artist named Puff Johnson. I had a lot of big hits with Martika. We had, a #1 single, and that claim to fame was we had a song called Toy Soldiers, and Madonna just released a single, and Madonna was #2, and Toy Soldiers was #3 in the country. And we were all waiting for the following week to see which song would go to #1. And Toy Soldiers jumped Madonna to go #1 that week in Billboard. So that was probably the biggest hit that this new company, Famous Music, had in that time. And it was very exciting, very, very exciting.
You were their guy.
Well, I was one of the guys there. It was, what I liked about it is there was a lot of camaraderie there. In the music business, it's a very, how do you say, narcissistic business where it's all about you. And Alan Molina, he was a great team player, and he wanted me to be as successful as he was. And that's what made it really exciting.
That's a pretty key thing, is when you're going up or on the top already, is surrounding yourself with people that you believe in and that you like to work with. And the truth is, it's a give and take relationship. You wanted him to be as successful as he possibly could, because that's also going to make he's going to want you to be just as successful as you could be, right? Isn't there an attitude?
Well, early on, there was one thing that a friend of mine named Tom Sturgis told me, and Tom Sturgis ran the company called Chrysalis Music, and we used to play golf together. And he told me that the better you make your boss look, the better you're going to look. Absolutely. The more promotions he gets, the more promotions you're going to get. So early on, I continued to make an effort to make the person above me look as good as they possibly can. And, it's not easy to do, because, you want all the fingers pointing at you, but yet if you say that you're a team player and I couldn't have done it with this person and it's a beautiful thing and you both are successful, then that becomes a very, very positive momentum in your company.
So you're vice president at Paramount.
Yeah.
And back to some of this, but you're vice president at Paramount. What happens next? You're now in the music business about what? You're at Paramount for 4 years?
Yeah, it's about 9 years at that time.
Okay, so you're in the business about 9 years. And then what do you do then?
So I was at Paramount, and in the music business, when a company does really well and you make a lot of money, unfortunately, the top people start getting paid big salaries. And those big salaries start to look like they're being overpaid. So eventually what happens at every company is that the person above the president decides that they want to bring someone else in. So I was at Paramount for 7 years and had some great successes there. And the head of Paramount Pictures decides that he wants to bring someone in that has had experience building a huge company, right? Not just a publishing company, but an overall major music company. So the person that they decided to bring in was the head of Warner Chappell, who had been head of Warner Chappell for probably 30 years. His name was Irwin Robinson. And Irwin Robinson's right-hand man was my original boss from the tape room, Ira Jaffe. And so they came in, and I go, oh man, I'm going to be the king of the West Coast here, right? Because I thought Ira Jaffe, Irwin Robinson, they love me, I'm doing well. Well, they decided that they want to bring in their own people that they have been working, and I feel like Ira probably had a little chip on his shoulder because I left him to go to Famous Music, right?
Right.
And so I ended up losing my job there. And luckily, Paramount took pretty good care of me, and I started looking around for another job. But as you know, in the music industry, there are very few people that leave the music industry, and usually the only way that you get another job is kind of what happened to me. A new head comes in, and then they hire their own people. So for about a month, I went through the whole nervous breakdown. What am I going to do? You know, I had a wife, I bought a house, my kids, and, you know, luckily I had a good severance pay from the buyout. So it wasn't that stressful, but in my mind, it was very stressful. Uh-oh, the dogs are going crazy. My wife just came home. But in the back of my mind, it was very stressful, you know, because you think, oh, I'm never going to get another job. I am, I'm a loser. I just wasn't as good as I thought I was. And so I found out that there was a job opening at Sony Music. And Sony Music had just sold their publishing catalog to a company called EMI Music. So they were rebuilding their catalog. And so I thought, oh, this would be a perfect place to go because Sony was this huge company and they wanted to invest a lot of money in the music business. And so there was a lady there, her name was Deirdre O'Hara. And I had met Deirdre. She was probably the number one, I'm going to say the word schmoozer in the music business. She would be at every show. She knew all the top players. She was a friend of Tommy Mottola's. She was like the it person in the music business. And I remember leaving a message saying, Deirdre, you know, it's Jim Vellutato. I worked at music for 7 years. I'd love to come and talk to you, you know, about the position that's open. No return phone call. So I'd wait a week, call her again. Deirdre, Jim Vellutato, you know, this before email. So all you could do is leave messages. And I got to know her assistant pretty well. And I said to her assistant, you know, if you could just get me 5 minutes, you know, that I could just come in and say hello to her. No return phone call. And so I started calling all my friends in the music business that knew her. And I said, you know, I need a job. Can you please just put in a phone call to Deirdre O'Hara and just tell her to meet with me, right? Just a 5-minute meeting. So I had probably 10 or 12 friends that were calling her. And one of my friends his name was David Landau. And he worked in film and television. And they needed a film and television guy. So they hired David Landau to work at Sony. And David called me and he said, this place is crazy. They need you here. They need to have someone like you here because no one's taking any control over the songwriters. You know, nobody knows what they're doing. Deirdre is more into signing bands than working with songwriters. So we need you here. So I go, you know, David, just put in a good word for me. So David put in a good word for me. All these other people put in a good word for me. And finally, I got a call back from Deirdre about a month after I had started trying to contact her. And she said, oh, you know, I've heard a lot about you, Jim. Let's set up a meeting. I'm going to New York for a week. Give me a call when I get back, right? Great. Write it down in my book. I'm going to call her in a week. Week comes back. She comes back. I leave a message with her assistant. You know, Deirdre wanted me to call her. You know, please let her know that I called her. No return phone call. Call the next day. Deirdre, you know, would you please give me a call back? I'd love to talk about it. No return call. I called her, you know, her assistant. I called David. David, can you tell her I want to meet with her? Yeah. I told her. She says she wants to meet with you. No callback. So finally, I'm at home. It's about 6:30 at night on, I think it was probably a Thursday or Friday night. And, eating dinner with my kids and everything. And Deirdre calls me. Right. Hi, Deirdre. And we talked for about 15 or 20 minutes. And, how are you doing? Tell me some of your successes over at there, who you work with, some of the writers. Great. I'd really like to meet with you, but I'm going to London next week. Give me a call back in a week. Right. So we go through the same scenario again. Right. So she calls me back about a week after she gets back from London. And she asked me, how much I was making at Paramount. And I gave her a general idea. And, this is how much I was making. I had a car stipend, all that. And she goes, okay, well, why don't we come in and talk, right? So I never got a chance to actually meet face to face with her. And she calls me up and she goes, we're having the Grammy party at Sony this year. So after the Grammys, why don't you come to the Grammy party? Now, the Grammys get over at about 11:30, 12 o'clock. You don't get to the party till 1:30 in the morning, right? So this was Saturday night. And, I watch the Grammys at home. I stay up, I put my nice clothes on and I go to the Sony party. And I was thinking, it was a very, very tight short list to get in the Sony party. They only let the executives, the top executives at Sony in. They let their artists in, and maybe a few high-powered attorneys and managers. So I drive over there. The valet parks my car, and I go up to the front. And I don't know if my name's on the list. I don't know, Deirdre.
Right.
Put my name on the list. So I'm looking down the list, and my last name starts with a V, right? And they're going through page after page, and they finally get to the V's, and they go, no, we don't see, a Jim Vellutato on this. And I go, really? And then I go, do you mind if I see it? And instead of Vellutato, they put Vellutata or something, some misspelling of my name. And I go, yeah, that's me right there. So I get in and I see two of my friends that are A&R at Sony Music, right? It's the record company. I come walking in, I say hello, and they're like, oh man, glad you could come. Congratulations. And I go, what do you mean congratulations? And they go, oh, congratulations. They wouldn't tell me what. So I'm walking around, and Deirdre is talking with the head of the publishing company, Bob Iman. And all of a sudden she comes over to me and she goes, oh, Jim, I want you to meet somebody. And she introduced me to him. She goes, this is our new vice president of A&R on the West Coast, Jim Vellutato. And I got the job. And I didn't even know it. So that was a pretty good night.
Pretty good persistence right there, huh? How many phone calls did you make to this woman?
Oh, I still talk to her. And the hardest part of taking this job was it wasn't 5 months later and they brought someone in to take her place. And I had to go through the whole thing again. I thought I was going to get fired after 5 months because they brought in this other woman to take her place. And luckily, the other woman liked me, and I was doing a good job. So I didn't lose my job. And this happened at Sony. I would say the head person was replaced at Sony probably every 4 or 5 years. So basically you had 4 to 5 years of feeling comfortable, and then you had to go through the whole prove yourself
once again. How long did you stay at Sony for?
I was there for 25 years. Yeah.
Whoa. So now you're talking about almost a 40-year career.
Yeah. And Sony, I'll tell you, it was some of the best times in the music business and some of the worst times in the music business where, I had bosses that were just ruthless and and you would go into a meeting with them knowing that you were just going to get ripped apart in the meeting.
Well, that
And
was also part of the style for a lot of people in
oh,
that day. You know, when they had a lot of power, they were pretty angry at times.
exactly. It was either do your job or lose your job. There was no, you have to do better. It's
And the
like, not
version of
doing better, goodbye.
what do your job means changed all the time. You really didn't know what they wanted from you, you know.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's quite the career.
Yeah. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. So here's some questions that I have for you.
Sure.
Um, so we're looking. Let's talk about a certain category of people that are sitting and watching this, and what they'd like to do more than anything else is be involved in the music business. That's what they want, just like you. And it's a different day and age, but are there other odd jobs like the mailroom, the tape room? Are there other odd jobs that people can do to get their foot in the door in the music business?
Yeah. I feel like there are many, many, many ways, because everybody in the music business is looking for someone to do something for not much money. And, you know, if you read the story of Prince, if you read the story of pretty much every music executive, uh, they got in doing whatever they had to. You know, Prince would sweep the floors and sleep at the studio just so he could get time to use the studio when it was available, right?
Mhm.
I know guys that would just be an assistant to the assistant, just to watch and look and help and whatever needed to be done, listen to music. At the time when I was in the music business, I would get probably 1,000, I would say probably 1,000 packages a week uh, of songwriters that I didn't know, just people who wanted bands, songwriters, everything. And it was impossible for me to listen to it. So I would bring in college people from UCLA. They would work for me 3 days a week, and basically their job was to listen to the music. And if they heard anything that they liked, then they would bring it to me, and you know, I would listen to it. And it's amazing how you can find talent in executives from just having them do that, because it's a real talent to be able to hear a piece of music that you've never heard before, that no one's ever heard before, and say, you know, this is really good, and give reasons why you think it's really good. And, you know, there are stories of how many A&R people missed on the Beatles, how many A&R people missed on The Who, how many people missed on Led Zeppelin, right? That they just didn't get it. But there's someone out there that got it and thought, you know, this is really special. So I feel like if a person feels they have that talent to find something that's really good, that's not just average, be it a voice, be it a lyric, be it a John Mayer guitar player. The story about John Mayer was, you know, I was working in the office, and one of my friends who worked in Nashville um, said there was this guy that was touring in Tennessee, and he was amazing. He's like the best guitar player he's ever seen. And he just lives in the back of his van, and he goes from city to city playing songs, and the place is just packed. And John Mayer was the front edge of the internet, and he would keep lists, email lists of all the people who would come to his show, and then he would shoot him an email before he came into town telling him that they were playing, and then they would all show up at his show. So I got a phone call about John Mayer, and you know, I was the songwriter guy, I was not the A&R guy, and I decided to give the person who was my boss at that time this message, you know, about John Mayer, that you know, this guy thought he was fantastic. And luckily she took it seriously, and she got on a plane the next day, went down to see his show, and we ended up signing John Mayer.
Wow.
So I feel like the good thing and the bad thing about the music business is that anybody can find a hit artist. You know, Dan, you could go outside tonight and drive down to Third Street Promenade, see some girl there that's fantastic, and you know me as a contact, you bring me a tape or a CD or an MP3 or whatever it is now, and I give it to someone I know, and all of a sudden they love it, and they're getting signed to a record deal. I mean, it does happen that way. It's very rare, but it does happen that way. I remember Kanye West, when I was working at Sony, there was this guy who was doing rap, and rap was fairly new. There's Young MC, there was the street rap going on out there. And I remember hearing a song. Everybody was yet screaming about this kid, Kanye West, Kanye West, Kanye West. And I wasn't really that into rap. I didn't really like it. But we had a meeting, and they played the song Jesus Walks. And I listened to that song, and it sold me. It was like, oh my God, this is rap that I like, that I can listen to. And, they ended up signing Kanye, and it became huge, just absolutely huge. But, there was someone that brought Kanye to the person that signed him, someone who saw that. And that's
pushing their energy in the right, in as many directions as they can.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden something hits.
Yeah.
What if so take a person now, this is before they would ever get to you. They have a song or an album. Mm-hmm. They don't know anybody. They don't know anything. But they feel that they got a song. They got something. What do they do? What path would you put them on, which would ultimately put them in front of the right people to hear that song?
I think that quality is the number one most important thing, as opposed to quantity. I used to take meetings with people. I've written 10,000 songs, right? And sorry, I have to do something here. I've written 10,000 songs, and I go, well, play me your best song, right? And they can't pick one. They will, let me play you 5. No, I want to hear one. I feel that's the hardest thing to do. And if you have written a bunch of songs and you feel you have one or two that are really special, then you go in and you record them as best you can. You hire guitar players, you go into a studio. If you can't afford that, you try to find some friends who have the equipment that are able to do it. It's all part of that knowledge of getting to know people, mm-hmm. Getting to the best people you possibly can to make your song sound the best it can possibly sound.
Right.
Now, when I was writing songs, I had this wrongly so idea that I had to do all the music, and I had to play the guitar, and I had to play the drums, and I had to sing it, and I had to, to me, unless you are a Prince or a John Mayer or, an incredible musician, all these people in the music business are only used to listening to the best people. So anything less than that, it's not going to be as good. So if you have a great song, you want to get it recorded the best it can possibly be recorded. Then, which is good and bad about the internet, you can go to your friends who know people in the music business, because everyone knows someone in the music business. If you dig deep enough, someone knows someone.
Right.
Or you can just launch it on your own and let the people decide. Justin Bieber, he did not have a record deal. He would sing covers on the internet. And that's kind of how he got discovered, because his voice was so good and he had so much passion that he would, who was it that noticed him? Usher noticed him on the internet, and they went up and signed him, and he took him to his record label, and the rest is history.
History, yeah.
So I feel like it was funny. The other night, I was unfortunately I've become a little bit addicted to TikTok, and I was going through TikTok before I went to bed, and this girl came on and sang "Rumors" by Fleetwood Mac, mm-hmm. and she was amazing. And I thought, I was watching real closely. I thought maybe she was just faking it, just kind of lip syncing it, but it was actually her. And the first thing I did is I sent an email to her saying, how can I hear some more? I have a record label. I'd love to hear some more from you, And I feel like if you get that email, you don't ignore it. You respond to it right away, because if you ignore it, then the person thinks, this person doesn't know what they're doing. It's just, it's just flaky.
Did you get an answer back?
I don't know. I have to check tonight. I just saw it last night. Yeah. But I feel like if you're good and it's quality, someone's going to respond. A music supervisor will like the song. Someone's going to respond, but it has to be good. It has to be unique. It has to be different.
Get your product together, and then you go bang on doors virtually or internet-wise, or beg everybody and anything, and you continue to push forward. Because I always think that's what happens with people, is they push forward and they don't give up.
Yeah.
Something will break for them, just like it has for you, and it still does today. There are people still starting out, discovering a song, becomes the same path that you took.
Yeah. And knowledge. I think knowledge about the industry is incredibly important, because if you're at a show and the head A&R person from Universal is standing right beside you and you don't know who he is and you don't recognize him, that's an opportunity to say hello. Hey, would you listen to my song?
Right.
And these people aren't mean, they won't say no. They'll say, yeah, send me the song. I'll take a listen to it. But it's got to be good, because you may not get a second listen.
That's right. It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
How do you personally know when you are listening to something that has the potential to go all the way? What do you hear?
I'm more of a lyric person, and I feel like you could play the 1-3-5 chord, and you can probably sing 10,000 songs to a 1-3-5 song chord, right? If you know what that is, it's Tequila Sunrise, 1-3-5 chord, right? Don't Stand So Close to Me, 1-3-5 chord, right? So I feel like the music is important, but what is being said and the melody that it's being said with, to me, is the most important part of a song. And if I hear something that is described in a way that has never been described before, that's what connects with me. So in my career, starting with Take Me Home Tonight, Wrecking Ball, I came in like a wrecking ball. Big Girls Don't Cry, Toy Soldiers, right? I Don't Want to Wait for My Life to Be Over, right? All those songs have something that's expressed to me that I've never heard before. I've never heard it in that way. Kelly Clarkson, I had a hit with her called What Doesn't Kill You Make You Stronger. Now, I've heard that a million times, but not the way that she put it, right? She put it in a song, surrounded it with some great ideas in the verses, and then, hits you in the face, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I feel like everybody can be a great critic at music, but, there are certain people that just take it a little bit further. There's some people who love Adele, right? There's some people who can't stand listening to Adele. There are some people who love Led Zeppelin, right? And there are some people that can't stand listening to Led Zeppelin.
Right.
I always felt that if I liked something, I'm kind of the average Joe, that likes, I like hamburgers, I like pizza. I felt like if I liked something, then there were probably a million other people in this world that would like it, and you just have to have confidence that that's true.
So what is your purpose in doing what you're doing? Is there a purpose in doing what you're doing?
Well, at the time, um, when I was deep in it, in the middle of my career, my purpose was to find one of the biggest artists that has ever lived. Right? I wanted to find someone that the world would know about, and in doing that, it's a two-edged sword, because you want to sign as much artistry as you can, but then if you sign a few things that don't happen, then you don't have a job, right? So you have to be pretty sure that you're going to be successful when you decide you're going to put a couple $1,000,000 of your company's money into it. There are a lot of people who never signed anything. They just kind of did the job and lasted 4 or 5 years, and all of a sudden they said, "Look, you've been here for 4 or 5 years, you haven't signed anything. We're going to get rid of you." And there were guys that came in and signed 5 or 6 things in the first year, and nothing happened, and they were gone. So I feel like my purpose couldn't be to be successful. It had to be to find something of quality that I loved. And from songwriters to artists, if I didn't feel like I wanted to go down at 2:30 in the morning to some club and see this person perform, if I just said, "Oh, I don't want to do this," then it wasn't good enough. I had to have to go out there and support this person as much as I could, or else I wouldn't sign it.
It sounds like you got pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Can you discuss the biggest obstacle or obstacles that have come between you and your goals?
I feel the biggest obstacles are the people who were above me, um, because they were all very insecure, and you had to be very, very careful not to overshadow their successes, and to embrace them as a partner in your successes. Because if you didn't do that, then a lot of people would undermine your abilities and your job.
Right.
So, uh, everyone says, "Oh, I wish I had $5 million in my pocket so I could do what I wanted to do." Right. And if I would have had that, would I have been successful? I'm not sure, because there were a lot of times I went to them for money, and they would say, "I think you ought to think more about this. I'm not sure this is something you want to sign," right? And it would really make you think about it before pulling that trigger. So in that way, it was a good thing. But in the other way, there might have been a lot of things that I could have signed that would have been successful, but they didn't want me to sign them because they wanted to spend the money and be the person in charge of signing something really good. So I would say that tap dance is probably the most difficult thing that I had to endure in the music business.
You probably became pretty good at it after a while. I mean, as good as you can get at it. I'm
Yeah,
sure you
yeah.
continue to go to manage your.
You had to know when not to talk and when to talk.
When to shut up is always a good thing. Um, so your work, your career, your family, the whole deal, what does balance mean to you? And is it important?
um, I feel like at the beginning of your career, there's not going to be a lot of balance. I feel like, um, when you're just starting out and you have a goal in mind and you have something that you want to do, that's got to be your number one priority. And I hate to say this, but there are a couple times when I signed some incredible artists that I thought were going to be the next thing, and then they would get involved, with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and they would stop writing as much as they did, and they would end up going away for the weekend, and all these things started to interfere with the work that we had to do, to become successful.
Mm.
And I feel like that stuff has to be put off to really achieve a goal that you have in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it actually is. There is a certain balance to have, but it's just not going to be balanced evenly.
Right.
We all need a little R&R time. We all need to sleep a little bit.
Right.
We all need to play a little bit. But you can't play up here and think your career is going to stay right there.
Right.
It's not going to happen. That successful people are going to keep it up here and play a little bit down here.
Yeah.
But
and I think like you and I have discussed a lot. Once you get into the heart part of your life, outside of what you want to accomplish, relationships, children, I think you have to approach those and be ready to approach those with the same diligence as your career. So if your career is here and you get married, your relationship has to be at the same level. And you have to find some way to keep those two things equal. And it may not be time, it may just be quality of time.
mm-hmm.
I always look at people who are successful at their marriages. You look at Tom Hanks, right? Who's been married for many, many years. I mean, he's one of the biggest movie stars in the world, but he does things to keep his marriage happy, to keep his wife and their relationship going. And when I was in the music business, I remember my wife was a teacher. She had to get up real early in the morning. And so what I would do is I would take her out to dinner, or we would have dinner together. I would drive home. It was an hour or so to drive home. And I would drive home and we would have dinner together. And this was after the kids were born and everything. And we would have those hours from 7 till 9:30, 10 o'clock, to sit and do all the things that you have to do with family. And then boom, 9:30 would come and I would be out to the club, and I'd be out till 1:32 in the morning most of the time. But, I made that effort. I didn't have to, but I made that effort, to have that time together.
I'm trying to envision your outfit with the big collars out, opened up to the navel, and cocktail in your hand, and all the things you do to play that game. How did you not get trapped into the drug scene and the party scene and all that was around the music business? How did you manage to do that? Because I don't know if I could pull that off.
I even in high school, I never needed that to have fun. And I always felt that I had more fun without it than I did with it. When I, believe me, there were times when I drink too much, and I didn't feel like I was as quick-witted. I didn't feel like, I had the personality. I just felt a little dumb when I had that. And I didn't want to be dumb. I wanted to be at the top of my game.
As you're saying this, the truth to me is that what you have to realize, anybody that's doing something similar to what you were doing, just because everybody else was playing, you were actually still working.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't go to the club to get, screwed up and drunk and crazy and stay out late at night. You went to the club because you were working.
Right. Right. And that was the difference. There was never, I was never interested in that part of it. It just, that was not fun to me. Fun to me is going out and winning $20 off Dan Burrell on the golf course. That's fun to me. Going out and getting drunk and that was never fun for me.
Yeah. Do you so how do you give back? How do you give back to the world? Do you give back to the world? Are you going to give back to the world someday? What do you do?
I feel like I have a personality that if anyone ever wants information, right, I never turn down anyone who wants information or knowledge or like we're talking about here. What is the road that I have to take, right? So if someone I don't know contacts me, it was funny. I was thinking about this the other night. I had this girl from New Jersey. She found out my address. I don't know how. And she sent me an MP3 of songs, right? And she goes, I read about you. I think you had a great career. I would love to know what you think of my songs. Now, there are a lot of people out there who would just ignore it and not respond. But I took a listen. There were 4 songs. I critiqued each song, and I sent her back, a nice email saying, this is where I think is good. This is where I think you need help. Feel free to send me more material. And that has nothing to do with me. Bug. That has nothing to do with me, trying to sign her and make money. That just has to do with someone who's interested in improving their craft.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And I feel like, other than money, that's what I have to offer. I can offer knowledge.
Yeah. I hope she runs with it. I met someone in skiing in Aspen, Sun Valley, I think. And I may have told you, but this guy's life's purpose, he said, he had a family and a job and all this. And I said, is that what you really want to do for the rest of your life? He goes, no, I want to be in the music business. I said, really? I want to be a music producer. I said, and he was all excited. I said, that's what it is. That's what you need to do. He goes, you're right. He goes, I got to figure this out. Yeah. I said, you know what? Because you said that, here's the first step. I want you to get in touch with me, and I'm going to hook you up with a guy. Yeah. You or Sterling. I can give you some information. He goes, man, are you serious? He hugged me off the lift. He never, ever sent me anything.
I'll tell you the opposite. Let me tell you the opposite side of that story. There was this guy named Howard Benson who was an engineer, right? He went through school. He worked at Hughes Aircraft, but he wanted to be a producer. And a friend of mine who was in the music business, who worked with Stevie Ray Vaughan, he met this producer, and the guy went in and did a demo of Fire by Jimi Hendrix. And it was this cool kind of dance version, right? It was really unique and really good. And Mike Zotto called me up and he goes, yeah, I want to play something for you. He comes over and he plays this production of Fire, and it's fantastic. So I took that production and I sent it to a friend of mine at one of the record companies, right? And I said, you got to listen, this is amazing. Guy at the record company set him up with this developing band, right? It didn't pay him probably. He just said, just take this band in and see what you can do with them. That band never became a hit, but the A&R guy became very, very successful. And he started using Howard Benson over and over and over again to produce his development bands, right? Because he didn't have to pay him a lot. And all of a sudden, Howard Benson started having hits. And then Howard Benson became the hottest rock producer in the music business. He's still doing it, still producing all these different rock bands. And, he's probably as old as, in his 60s, and he's still doing great. But it just goes to show you quality. He turned in something that was of quality, and people just take it and run with it.
That's very cool. Here's my last question for you, because this is great to hear your story. And I hope people get fired up, especially I hope there's that, 21-year-old that's in college trying to figure out what they want to do, doesn't know, absolutely loves music, that goes, I got this. I understand. Yeah. So can you give me your biggest aha moment? That moment that you thought, man, it's over. I don't know if I can figure this out, to where whatever time later you went, I got it. What is that biggest aha moment for you?
When the song Wrecking Ball came into my office, a writer named Mozella wrote it, and we wanted to give it to to Beyonce to record as a single. When she played me that song, I thought this is going to be a huge worldwide hit. And it was such a weird scenario the way it happened. There was a writer from England that I knew that was in town. There was a writer from Canada that I knew that was in town, and Mozilla had a writing session on Friday, and it was canceled. And the two writers were in town just looking for a place to stay that summer because they were coming into summer. And we didn't have a writing room available. So a friend of mine said, "Oh, I've got this great piano at it's a school for music called Hori Pro, and it was a classroom with benches, and it had a piano in the corner." So I sent Mozilla over there, and she walked into the room like, you know, she had been successful writing hundreds of commercials, right? And she had never really had a big hit. She walks in this room, and it's a classroom. And luckily, one of the writers, what's his name? Oh God, I'm sorry, I'm blanking here. But one of the writers who was the piano player came over, and he sat down and he started playing. You know, he's an incredible keyboardist. He made this piano sing, right? And the third writer came in, and the funny thing is Mozilla had just gone through a breakup. She was getting married, and she canceled the wedding because her husband did something that he shouldn't have done. And so she was heartbroken. And basically what she did is she just put that into the lyric, you know, that she had fell in love with this guy and just came in like a wrecking ball without really knowing him and wanting to get married and everything. And it just went to pieces, just crashed and burned, right? And they wrote this song, and thank God Miley Cyrus heard it, because Beyonce would have never recorded it. And it became, I think it's the #1 selling video on YouTube, you know, with Miley Cyrus and her wrecking ball. So,
Wow.
you know, the thing, I guess the aha moment, you don't really know it's an aha moment, but you just try to do the best that you can, and good things happen.
That's the coolest thing ever, I think. I would say for people, find your purpose and do truly the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you say, good things will happen.
Yeah.
Dude, great story. Thank you for everything that you brought up. And I think people are going to just get an awful lot of this, and
good.
Have all their songs sent to me first, and then I'll look at them and I'll send them to you.
Thank you for the opportunity, Dan. I really enjoyed it.
No, it's cool. Well, I appreciate it, and we'll talk soon. And good work, man. Thanks,
all right,
dude.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.